I was there for 15 years, and it's like your soul belongs there. There's lots of people who say when they go to Bayfield, when they go to Lake Superior, Gitche Gumee, it's like your soul never leaves.
Introducing the new line of float suits by Ice Armor by Clam. With patent-pending motion float technology, it combines the security of a premium float suit with maximum mobility. Using a baffled, segmented design of the flotation material, we've created a line of float suits that are comfortable and flexible, so you can stay mobile on the ice. Breathable, waterproof, and flexible, our float suits have all the great features you expect from Ice Armor by Clam. Stay warm, stay mobile, and stay safe with the float suits from Clam Outdoors. Pursue the ice.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Angie Scott and Barb Carey.
Hannah, welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. We were going to do an interview back when I was up at the Association of Great Lake Outdoor Riders Conference in Bismarck, which was my first experience there and my first time meeting you. But this works out perfectly because I wanted Barb to be involved in our chat, and we're also able now to tie it in with the special Woman on Ice series that we've got going on leading up to the Woman Ice Angler Project and the Woman on Ice event. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, I know Barb and you have spoken before on previous radio shows, but I'm excited to introduce you and your story to our audience. For those who aren't familiar with you, one of the big things that kind of changed the course of your life was a photo that went viral back in, I guess it was 2012, that kind of changed your trajectory. For those that aren't familiar, if you wouldn't mind, just give our listeners a quick background on that and why that was so pivotal to your life.
Oh, yeah. To say that changed my life would be an understatement. It's sometimes hard to truly explain that. So in 2012, I had been a wedding photographer and a commercial photographer for a very, very long time. And I had turned to my husband in June of 2012 and said, I want to take photos of dogs for the rest of my life. And he just started laughing at me. He's like, we live in a town of 300 people. That's not going to happen. Ha, ha, ha. And I had what I called white dress syndrome, which if I saw another wedding dress, I was going to lose it because I've been shooting weddings for so long that I was like, I can't do this. And he rolled his eyes and said, no, that'll never happen. And a friend of ours named John had this dog named Shep. And this dog reminded me of a dog I'd had in my childhood who lived to be 18, and Shep was 17 at the time. And I ran into John in July of 2012, and he said, I think we're going to have to put Shep down. He has really, really bad arthritis. I've been taking him into Lake Superior to ease it because when he gets in the water, he falls asleep in my arms. Would you come take photos of him? I said, well, yeah, of course. That's something I had, dogs were my thing, like I said. And I loved the fact that I could just do this favor to a friend of mine. So July 31st, 2012, I walked down to this little beach that we have in Bayfield, and John is in the water with Shep and holding him, and Shep is out cold, with his head on his shoulder. And I took a photo. We were only there for maybe 5 minutes. I took a photo right from the dock, and I said, hey, do you mind if I post this on Facebook? He's like, no, please do. And I had sort of told my Facebook fans for my photography business that I was going to take photos of this dog. And I put this on social media with the whole story about how he thought he'd have to put the dog down because he was in so much pain. He couldn't afford the treatments for him. And it went crazy viral. And that's the short version of it. We ended up, Shep got another year of life. People paid for his laser therapy treatment. We started at a nonprofit. I was traveling all over the country taking photos of dogs for the rest of my life. And I still take photos of dogs. So yeah, I was, my voicemail would fill up 5 or 6 times a day because John didn't have internet. So people were they were trying to get a hold of me in order to get a hold of John. And then people would come to Bayfield, drive 8 or 9 hours and walk into my house without knocking freaked my husband out. And that's the beginning of my crazy adventure. And it just gets crazier after that, if that's possible. So, yeah, that's the story of the photo.
Angie, maybe we can post a picture of that photo on the Facebook group page or on our website or something, because it is something that's really amazing.
Yeah, we'll put a picture of that on the show notes for this episode, and then we can share it in the group as well. But that people just seem to resonate so much with, animals and dogs and those types of stories. So, and you just reminded me when you were telling that story, my dog is going to be 10 this year, and she's a part golden retriever. They usually kind of have a shorter lifespan. I'm hoping the mix that maybe she'll live a little longer than a typical golden does. But you just reminded me I need to order her some more glucosamine.
Yes, I have two 14-year-old dogs who live on that.
Yeah, it works. It helps quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, how did you initially get such a passion for fishing in the outdoors?
Well, what's crazy is, so nobody in my family hunts or fishes. I never did it. It wasn't that we weren't outside when I was a kid. We hiked, we canoed, we were always outside. We were not allowed, we didn't even have TV. Like, we were always outside. But nobody in my family hunted or fished. So I went to school in 1996. I went to school at UW-Madison, and I would drive to school, and I'd look, and there's this thing called Monona Bay, and guys would be out on buckets fishing on the ice in their business suits. I'm like, this is fascinating. I love people watching. That's why I was a good photographer. But and the traditions behind stuff and people who are doing unusual activities. So for a thesis paper, I wrote a paper on the folklore of ice fishing. So what I did is I interviewed all kinds of people about the traditions of ice fishing, because I lived in the South, I'd lived in Illinois, I'd lived up in Vermont, but it wasn't anything that I knew anything about, and I was fascinated by it. So though I did not in college actually get to go ice fishing, which made me laugh, I signed up for a class on how to fly fish. So I taught myself to fly fish. And I went and I would hire guides, and even after college, I'd go fly fishing by myself because I was really into it. And then in 2004, I was up in Bayfield, Wisconsin, and the day before I was supposed to leave to go back to my parents' house down in Madison, which is about 6 hours south of there, this guy walks up to me, and I knew I was going to marry him, and his name was Jim Hudson, and it was within 5 seconds. He said, "You like to fish?" I said, "Yes, I love to fish. And his eyes lit up, and we bought a boat together a month later, and I never really left Bayfield. So we started his guide service together, and he taught me all about Lake Superior. I mean, I could not have had a better teacher about fishing. So I bought him a boat, and he taught me how to fish. So that's how it worked.
Well, that's cool.
But he made fun of me for fly fishing. So I really didn't. So I stopped fly fishing in 2004 because I was learning all about the lake and spin casting and bait casters and trolling and all of those things, which was something I didn't know anything about because I had taught myself about fly fishing. So that was interesting.
Cool. So, and he was your big introduction, obviously, then to ice fishing, to actually getting out there and doing it yourself.
2004 was the first time I ever got on the ice, and the first time we did is actually a spot that I'm hoping that will go out for the Women on Ice trip. It's off of Ashland, and he and I went out for whitefish, and we, smallmouth and whitefish. And so we take the snowmobile out, and it's like 10 inches of ice. We pass a shack with one guy in it. That's probably almost 2 feet of ice. But we keep going. We're about 1.5 miles, 2 miles out. We're on 10 inches of ice, and we were fishing. And I'm just freaking out because I've never been on the ice, and I was so excited. And we're jigging, and we decide to pack up and go because we stop. The bite shuts off. And his snowmobile doesn't start. And I thought he was joking. He's like, no, actually, I'm not joking. You need to walk back to that shack. I was like, what? So I have to walk to the shack, and it's like half a mile away, maybe a mile away. And the guy opens the door, and it's this guy in like a union suit, long johns, and the hat, the grumpy old man hat. And he opens the door. He's like, hey, little lady. I'm like, So what's going on? And Jim had said, don't let him drive his truck over here. It's like, okay, whatever. I didn't know anything about ice at the time. And so the guy goes, oh, no, it'll be fine. Let's just drive over there. It's like, okay. So we get in this guy's truck. I don't know who this guy is. I just started being an insurance agent, by the way, at this point, too. And I was freaking out because I'm a nervous person. But he kept saying to me, I've lost 3 different trucks. It's fine. You just jump out. I was like, okay. So, and we're driving towards Jim, and he's waving his hands. Stop, stop, stop. He said, jump out. And I jump out of the truck, and it's spider cracking all over around us.
Oh, my gosh.
And he's like, run. He says, run. I said, okay. So I am like booking it to shore, and they hook up Jim's snowmobile to this truck, and everything's fine. We get to the shore, and the snowmobile, we get it up on the trailer and everything. And the guy goes, oh man, I didn't know there was only like 9 or 10 inches of ice. I have a secondary fuel tank that's totally full. I'm surprised we didn't go through. And that was my first introduction to ice fishing.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you've ever heard that story.
I don't think I heard that one, and I could just visualize the whole thing, and I would be running away myself.
Yeah. And you just see Hannah booking it.
And you want to go back to this location.
Yes, I do. There's like 2 feet of ice there now. It's fine.
It's fine.
Well, the place we're talking about, Angie, and I'm so excited that you're going to come with this year. It's just magical. I mean, I've never really experienced any place that I've been that's been that magical. And it's one of those places that once you go there, it just kind of seeps into your soul, and you can't wait to go back again. Hannah, I know you have a special fondness for this area, not only as a fishery, but just as a local community. I mean, it's just a wonderful place to go.
Yes, it is a wonderful community that I was there for 15 years, and it's like your soul belongs there. There's lots of people who say when they go to Bayfield, when they go to Lake Superior, Gitchigumi, it's like your soul never leaves. I feel so lucky that is my home body. That is my home body of water. That's where I really, truly learned about the lake. And I feel very lucky that I was taught by someone who had such a relationship, like a spiritual relationship, because he was a Ojibwe. He had such a spiritual relationship with this lake. And now I get to introduce both my teammates from Women on Ice, but the women who are coming to fish on Saturday for the public event, to my body of water, my home. I moved constantly growing up, and the fact that this is my spot and I get to introduce it to people is incredible.
Yeah, it is. Plus, when you're fishing that water, you never know what you're going to catch. I mean, your line is in the water, and you get a bite, you get a fish on. It's like one time out there, I caught 12 different species. You just never know what's going to come up, and that's kind of part of the excitement and mystery about it.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, you can have all kinds of trout, salmon, whitefish, browns. You can have smelt, perch, smallies. I mean, the smallies through the ice are crazy. I mean, you can get 22-inch smallies through the ice.
That'll
crazy.
bend a jig rod in half.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, so I am spoiled because that's where I love to fish. But it's incredible. It's very cool. It's very, very
cool. So, I knew Hannah and Jim back in the old days. I mean, I fished with Jim. We were both police officers, actually, when he first was starting his guide service, and I actually went to talk to Hannah in her insurance office one time. We've got to know each other then, and Jim, Hannah's husband, was really a legend, a fishing legend. I mean, he was really kind of a pro that was doing television shows and working as an ice team pro for Clam Outdoors, and everybody knew who he was. And so, as the story unfolds now, part of, Hannah's story and part of this whole reason we're doing this for Women on Ice this year is because of the terrible accident that happened when Hannah's husband ended up losing his life in an ice fishing accident. And Hannah, I know you very well. I know you are able to talk about this without it. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of part of the story, and it's part of the story that we're going to be sure gets mentioned during this media event we have, because I think it's important on many levels. And I just, if you can maybe share with our listeners a little bit about that piece of your life at that time and how that all came to be.
Yeah, so Jim and I are going through at this time, 2012, the end of 2012, my crazy viral photo. At the same time, his business is blowing up. He had become extremely successful, not only as a guide, but as a professional angler. He was doing so well, but he was very tired. We had a conversation like the second week of January. I remember he said, ice fishing guiding is exhausting. And every time I talk to other guides, they say the same thing. It's cold, it's windy, stuff breaks, things just happen, and you're tired. So we laughingly said, well, maybe we should move to the Keys and you can be a year-round open water guide. He said, no, I like ice too much. So we decided to nix that. So I had a photo shoot in Houghton, Michigan, that last week of January. And I got back on the 25th of January, and we went out to dinner that night. It was a Friday. We went out to dinner, and we were talking with some people at the Pier Plaza, and we were looking over maps, talking about the next day where we were going to go. And a friend of ours who was an EMT and had worked with Jim, as a cop and an EMT, looked at Jim and said, I better not see you in the rig tomorrow. You better be careful where you're going. And Jim said, oh, of course. You know how safe I am. And we jokingly laughed it off. And we went home, went to bed. About 5:30 in the morning, Jim gives me a kiss goodbye. I remember it so vividly. Gives me a kiss goodbye. And about 10:30 in the morning, I'm sitting and working on my computer. And my life was complete chaos there because that point, because the viral stuff was still going on with this photo in our nonprofit. And I was ignoring my phone because I was trying to get work done. And I'm sitting at my computer and my phone is blowing up. Like, people keep calling and I'm just ignoring it because I think it has something to do with the photo. And I'm sitting at my computer and I hear this bang, bang, bang on our front door. And I go open it, and it's Aaron, the police officer, who actually replaced Jim on the force and who lives in the apartment below me. And he looked at me, and I knew what had happened. He said, Jim went in. It doesn't look good. And what was crazy was, so he was guiding clients by the spot, which is called the South Channel, and had gone to go look at another spot. And there had been ice the day before in this channel, and everything had been fine. But what had happened was his snowmobile, he went to a spot he thought there was ice, and there wasn't. And his snowmobile went through, and his friends tried to get him back. But unfortunately, he was in the water for about 45 minutes. And so the wind sled, which we will meet all those people at the Women on Ice, by the way, because these are my friends and my favorite people in the whole world. They make it possible for people to live up where we lived. These were the guys, because it was all guys, these are the guys who worked with him as firefighters, as police, who worked with him on rescues. They had to come in the wind sled from Madeline Island and get him out of the water and work on him. These small communities, these are the people who they saved their friends. They rescued their friends. So it's just different in that aspect. So they took me to my friend Phil took me to the ER. And when I found out, and I looked as I'm driving out of town, and I look at where all the emergency, like there's obviously a bunch of stuff going on, and it was the South Channel. Jim had always told me, his grandpa told him, if you go in the South Channel, you'll die. You're not coming back. And I knew he had gone in the South Channel, and that's when I knew no matter what, he was not going to make it. So they took me to the ER, and they brought him in, and what was crazy was I needed to identify him. So the firefighter from Ashland handed me his soaking wet wallet and a bag with his ice armor suit that was absolutely, obviously soaking wet. And they said, you have to come in and identify him because we're not sure if it's Jim. And I was like, what do you mean? This is your friend. So I walk in, and it's my good friend, one of the EMTs. She looks at me. She's like, I'm so sorry. We don't know if it's Jim. And I look over, and they're working on him. Like they're trying to resuscitate him. They have the tubes in, and they're working on him, doing CPR on the doctor. And his goatee, he had a goatee that was brunette. It was bright red. His hair was bright red. That's why they didn't know if it was him. Plus, I think everyone was in shock and couldn't believe it was their friend. So they're working on him, and I'm like, yes, it's his mom and I are in there with him, and they're working on him, trying to resuscitate him. And I remember saying, please stop. He's not going to make it. Stop. They said, we have to fly him to Duluth because it's a last ditch. So I go with the gurney, and they're still working on him, and I go to the bay where the helicopter, like they're going to pull it out, and I look around, and it's the guy, our friend Eric, who the night before had said, I better not see you in his rig. And it's him, and he's just crying. These are all his friends. And so we put him on the helicopter. He flies. I basically wave goodbye to my husband. And then I'm driven to Duluth, where I go, and I get a phone call on the way saying, unfortunately, he hasn't made it. And I remember saying to the doctor, thank you, because when you watch the person you love, they're doing these things, trying to resuscitate them, it's the most painful thing you can witness. And I can talk about this now because I have been able to work through it. But it's crazy what happens. And I get to the hospital, and it is the nurse who was working on him, trying to save him, greets me at the door crying because he desperately wanted to save him. He said, I used to watch him on TV all the time. He was so safe. I used to watch his safety seminars. That's what was crazy is he did all these safety seminars, and people watched him and saw him as this person to look up to. But it just proves accidents can happen to anyone. So that at that moment, I was taken care of by Bayfield in general. Like, I talk about how amazing and magical and special that community is. That's the reason. I mean, it's an amazing community regardless, but whenever there's a tragedy in that town or that area, they come together, and I'm sure it's small towns everywhere, but there's something about Bayfield and that lake, and the lake takes people, and we rally when that happens. It was an incredible experience looking back on it. It was heartbreaking, and it'll be 6 years exactly when we do this trip, like to the days. But there's a reason that I stayed for so long, because I love it there, and I love the community, and they took care of me, and I made sure I took care of them. So, yes.
Yeah, this is that situation. I mean, I just can't even emphasize enough how much that resonated, not only through Bayfield, but through the entire ice fishing world community. Yeah. I mean, I remember, people talk about, they remember where they were when JFK was shot or something like that. I remember where I was when I heard that Jim died, because it was one of those things that was just, you couldn't believe it. You just couldn't believe that happened. And, I mean, the fishing community really came together and rallied. I know around you, Hannah, and around, just around supporting each other. And it was a huge, huge thing at the time. It's still something that kind of has left impact on many, many people, and I think that us being able to go back there, 6 years to the date, talk about, challenging your fears and safety and all these things. I think it's just it's going to be really, and now you had left Bayfield since that time, and now you're going back, and it's kind of the whole community, I think, is kind of so excited and so rallied around us coming there and having it be kind of on that anniversary and us fishing the same water and having all these ice rescue people there for demos and everything. It's kind of a big deal. And it's, I talk about it and think about it and I get goosebumps. And it's, I'm so excited that we can share this with, the other women that want to come with us on that Saturday and the public in general. Just to have some of the, the meet and greet and the public demonstration on safety and all this other stuff. I mean, it's kind of, I'm sure you've already dealt with everything and it's, you've had your closure on it, but I just think that there's something that's so amazing that it's going to be on the exact same day.
Yes. And I'm interested. This sounds like very objective or like non-emotional, but it is, regardless of how far you are from the date, and I've talked to other people who've gone through similar situations, especially widows, no matter how far you are from the date of it, the actual day of it, you truly relive it. So for me, the Saturday, the 26th of January, being able to be on the same body of water and fish with Tommy Hicks, who was with Jim and was one of the people who tried to get him out. He took over and helped me with Jim's guide service when he passed away, because he had all these clients that still needed to be taken care of. To be able to do this with him and with all of you, especially you, Barb, you were the one who got me back out on the ice. You're the one who encouraged me. I love ice fishing more than anything, and I don't think I've been totally clear about that. Ice fishing is my favorite thing in the whole world because I love being outside. I love being out on the ice. I love the quality of the light as a photographer. So it is my favorite thing in the entire world. And so to be able to be with you, to be with the ladies, to be with Tommy in my favorite place on the planet I cannot wait. I cannot wait. So
yeah, I remember after Jim was gone, and I mean I knew that you really liked ice fishing, and I knew that you weren't fishing at all, and you've kind of almost put fishing aside from your life for a while after that happened. And I remember every 6 months or so I'd reach out to you. Yep. And I'd say, just so you know, if you ever want to go fishing, you're welcome to come with me and we'll go, or come to one of our events. And I think actually I asked you to be a speaker at one of our fish camps.
Yep.
And you came in and that's kind of, I think that was right before we started this Women Ice Angler project, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it was. It was right before we did. And that's when I realized I needed to fish, because it's part of my soul. And I know for the two of you, it's very similarly. It is you. This is a part of your being. Being outside fishing, that is part of you. And it is part of me, and it always will be.
Yeah, it's just such an amazing story. And you're such an amazing person for being able to, just transition through everything that have happened and become the person that you are right now, and how that journey has been for you, and being able to share it with the world, I think is so important, because there's so many lessons on so many levels with this story.
And I want people to enjoy being outside, but I also, from a grief standpoint, I want people to realize it's okay to talk about your story. It's not only okay, it helps. There's other people who are going through things, but it also, if you just bury everything inside, you're never going to move forward. you're never, ever going to come out stronger if you just bury it inside. And I think I know a big part of the fact that I have become so confident is because I can talk about these things. And regardless if people have necessarily been comfortable with it, it's important for me to talk about it. And I want other people to talk about bad things that have happened in their lives, because it is a sense of community, but it helps you get through it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how you've chosen to handle, these events in your life to help other people work through these things and share your experience like you have. And, it all seems to be coming full circle with this event. So I'm really excited to be a part of it. And, and talk about facing your fears. You did something that, like, I don't know why I have like this nightmare in the back of my mind, because it's never going to happen. But one of my biggest fears that I imagine in my mind is like me having to give a TED Talk.
Oh, and I'm like,
and you did that.
Oh, yes, and I enjoyed it. And Barb knows this. I am not a shy person, and you put me in front of an audience, and it's fun for me. So yeah, I did a TEDx talk in 2015 about all of this crazy stuff that had happened to me. And it's amazing how I do a lot of public speaking now. It's amazing how much better of a public speaker I am now. I look back at that and I watch it and I'm like, oh, like it almost gives me like, I love that I could do it, but I also look at it and go, oh, I probably should have practiced more.
I thought it was awesome, and we'll put a link to that in our show notes too. But that's why I'm really glad I've partnered up with Barb, who's a great public speaker, because that's one of my biggest fears. Yeah.
Yeah, we won't make you do that.
Oh, good.
And I'm so excited you're coming up with us for the trip. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I got a little taste of ice fishing last week, which will be a few weeks ago when this airs, but on Mille Lacs, which is the biggest body of water that I've fished so far, ice fishing. So I'm excited to get out on Lake Superior.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, Mille Lacs, I love Mille Lacs. It's fun.
Yeah, we unfortunately didn't catch anything. The weather was kind of wonky leading up to that. And the ice, we were kind of limited to where we could actually safely go. So, but it was just super fun being out there and learning like the flasher and stuff like that. It was a great experience. So I'm looking forward to getting out there again.
Yeah. That makes me happy. Welcome to the addiction.
Yeah. Well, I may never leave Bayfield, it sounds like, once I experience.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it sucks you in and you never leave.
Well, cool.
Well, we are happy that this show that has been so supportive of women anglers and adventurers is a sponsor of the Women Ice Angler Project, and we're going to be able to share, when we're up there. The public is coming on Saturday, but that whole week before, we're filming a couple different television shows. We're getting a lot of video and a lot of photos and stories. And so we'll all share this through the Women Angler and Adventure podcast. So look for links on our Facebook page and on the website. And I'm sure you'll be seeing links being shared around. But just the sense of community, with everybody involved is just kind of the heart of the story. And I'm just so excited to be a part of it. And Hannah, thank you so much. I mean, I just feel from the first time I met you in that insurance agent till now, and I look at how things have progressed and what, we've experienced together and just everything. It's just, who knows? I mean, life is such a surprise. Who knows what direction you'll end up being taken and go. And, you can either embrace it and hang on for the ride and get the most out of it, or sit back and complain about your bad things that have happened to you. And that's the whole point of this. I mean, you have to kind of put that somewhere where it's not going to keep you from moving forward. And you've done an excellent job of that.
Thank you. We both have the same idea that life is definitely an adventure, and it is a crazy ride. Crazy.
Well, thank you for telling us your story, and I'm so look forward to fishing with you, and Angie, having you there is just going to complete the whole thing. And again, a big thanks to all of our supporters. We have so many supporters that are sharing these podcasts and are engaging in our Facebook group. I mean, talk about empowering in people's stories. There's so much going on there. Angie just posted, what are your goals for 2019? And these women are piping up with all this really interesting stuff from Florida, from Alaska, from the whole country. It's so, motivating to hear what's happening with women all over the place having these lives of adventure. And it's a great time to be an outdoors woman, that's for sure.
Definitely. Yes, it is.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, and we'll definitely be sharing a lot from the event, and I'm going to be posting some videos while I'm there, and so I know you guys are going to be busy with your stuff, so I'm kind of going to try to be the correspondent while I'm there as much as I possibly can, so everybody stay tuned for that. All right, everyone, here we go, and the adventure begins. Be sure you're following us on the Woman Angler and Adventure Facebook group so you don't miss out on any behind-the-scenes action from the event. Also, check out the Woman on Ice Facebook page. There'll be a lot of stuff there. It's going to be a huge challenge, but I'm going to do my best to have a follow-up episode ready for you next week, recapping the big event. So be sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for that. Adventure awaits us all. We just need to go out there and grab it. See you next week.